All right. So what is it with regards to flipping? Why is it such a concern? And you need to know about asset protection. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to flip real estate, the number one concern you have is that you don't want to be tagged as a dealer, all right? Liabilities out there as well, but you don't want to get tagged as a dealer, because if you're tagged as a dealer, and that is someone who regularly buys and sells real estate, right? They treat it as inventory. You're not buying it to hold as a long-term investor. Then there are some adverse tax consequences that follow being tagged as a dealer. Namely, those adverse tax consequences are this. Everything you make is considered active income because, hey, you're flipping property, that's your job. On top of that, you can't engage in 1031 exchanges. They will not allow you, that is the IRS, the tax code doesn't allow you to participate in 1031 exchanges on your real estate because it's considered inventory and it's not eligible. To be eligible for 1031, you need to be an investor. The other problems you have when it comes to being tagged as a dealer is you can't depreciate your property. So all of that's going to go away. Those great benefits of having real estate and offsetting it against your income, that's no longer going to be there for you. If you engage in installment sales, which I have a lot of clients in certain markets who will flip real estate and they'll sell it on a contract to an investor, a homeowner. And what happens is that they sell them a house, let's say it's for $100,000, and they collect $10,000 up front and $1,500 a month. Well, when they sell that property, if their profit in that entire deal, let's say it was going to be 50 grand, they're going to pay tax on that entire amount, that entire $50,000. They have to pay tax on it, even though they only received $10,000 down in that $1,500 a month. Why? Because you're not eligible for installment sales if you're treated as a dealer. So I hope I've laid out enough reasons why you don't want to flip in your own name and you don't want to flip through an entity that passes down to you that is disregarded. For example, if you set up a limited liability company here and you treat it as a disregarded LLC or a partnership for tax purposes, and you're down here as the member in that LLC, well, the issue is going to be that anything that takes place in the LLC is going to take place in your name for tax purposes. So if the LLC is a dealer, you're a dealer if you have these two tax statuses in effect for that company. So what we have to do then is plan. We want to make sure that we're covering ourselves on the tax side, so we're not going to be tagged as a dealer. Dealer means bad. But we also want to look at the liabilities aspect of this as well. We don't want a buyer of one of our properties to cause massive disruptions in our flipping business and go out there and torch us on social media and make it so that people don't want to buy homes from us because they think they're going to get a bad deal. And it's not that this buyer got a bad deal. Maybe the buyer's just not happy with the deal after they close and they're looking for some retribution and they're going to go back against you. So we have to ensure that aspect, that is being protected, that liability protection's there, so that people that we're selling the houses to cannot come back at a later date and cause disruptions in our business. So that's a whole other aspect of the planning that we need to layer on here. So what is the base structure? What do we typically look at when we're working with someone who's going to flip real estate? I'm going to first look at the tax side. And so I'm going to create an entity for a flipper. This is going to be either a limited liability company or a traditional corporation, an Inc. It can be either one. But what's key here is that when you set up this entity, you want to make sure that it's taxed as either a C Corp or an S Corporation. Those are the two options you want to choose. Why? Well, you're down here. Yes, this entity here is going to be a dealer. All right, so it will be the dealer. But there's no chance that you'll be treated as a dealer because you're a member or manager of that entity. That's why we're choosing S Corporation tax status or C Corporation tax status for our LLC or corporation. Now, when we set up this entity, we choose these two tax elections. Many people say, well, which one do I go with, Clint? It really depends on what you're looking for. An S Corporation is a flow-through entity. And flow-through means this. If I generated $100,000 in profit inside of my business, after expenses, paying all my contractors, paying out all my ordinary necessary business expenses, that's what's left, that profit. That profit will be taxed to me even though I leave it inside of the business. Maybe I'm going to roll that 100,000 into my next couple deals. I need it for cash, for inventory, to buy more properties. So even though I don't pull it out, it's still, I will pay tax on it because an S corporation is flow through. That means the income flows to the owners of the company, regardless if they take their funds out. Now, if you take it out at a later date, you're not going to be taxed again. I mean, you only get taxed once on these profits. So the dilemma for some individuals, I have some clients that I work with, I mean, they're really successful in their flipping and they're generating about $100,000 a year, $1 million a year. And where they're bringing in that type of income from their flipping activities, they don't want that flowing down to them, all that income, because their tax rate's at 37%. They want to be able to cut their taxes, preserve more of that cash that they're generating from the sale of their real estate so they can redeploy it back into more deals. So for those investors, we look at using a C corporation, because a C corporation or a C corporation tax treatment, that is going to be taxed at a flat 21%. So just do the numbers here. You're saving 16% in taxes. And on $1 million, that's $160,000 in taxes you don't have to pay because your C corporation is paying the tax. So you take that $160,000 and you go out and you do more deals. So depending on where you're at from a tax standpoint, you may not want the flow-through treatment. You may elect to have the corporation taxed at its flat 21% be the driving force here, because you want to retain as much capital as you can at the corporate level so you can do more deals, because you need that money to buy additional inventory. Now, for those of you that might be thinking, well, what about double taxation? Well, what about double taxation? Double taxation with corporations, when you net out the numbers, that is, if I made $1 million in 2022, I made $1 million from flipping activities, I pay tax on that $1 million of $210,000, which leaves me with $790K left. When I later pull that money out and take it as a dividend out of my company, I will pay tax at 20%. And so when you add up the tax rates, 20% and 21%, and you average them out, it comes really close to 37%. You may pay an extra 1.5% in taxes overall, but what did you gain by using the C corporation's lower tax bracket? You gain the benefit of keeping $160,000 in your bank account that you didn't have to pay to the IRS, that you could use to do more deals. So this is why you want to analyze your business. When you go out and you set up your company to start your flipping business, you want to sit down with someone and go through these numbers and say, what is going to be the best for me as an individual starting this new flipping business? Or maybe you've already been flipping and you're looking to make a change and put together a structure. Okay, so that's the tax angle. Okay, and I'm not going to come back to that. It is what it is. We want to have an entity there that's a C or an S corp that you're a part of, you're the member of, but this isn't where we're going to flip through. Okay, now you're probably saying, well, he just contradicted himself. He just said we're flipping through a corporation or an LLC tax as a corp. Now he just told me I'm not flipping through there. What's going on with Clint today? Well, the thing is this: we are going to use special purpose entities for our flips. We're not going to flip through our main company here. And the example I'll share with you is, just think of it this way. Here's this main company, and this is I'm down here through my flipping company. It doesn't matter how it's taxed. Let's say we set up an LLC for this. And I have a couple of deals going on right now. All right. You sell this deal right here to this buyer. So your company no longer owns it. Now, this buyer who just bought this house has an inspection done, and the inspector, the plumber, comes in and looks around the house and says, oh, wow, all this plumbing work wasn't built to code. This is all wrong. We have to redo all of this. And so then you're going to take that and you're going to think to yourself, whoa, I need to redo all this work. How much is that going to cost? And the plumber tells you it's $50,000. Now, if you just spent $200,000 on this house or $400,000 on the house, that's a lot of money, right? You would assume that the work was done to code. Now, there may be some dispute about whether or not it was done to code, but the fact of the matter is, this individual buyer here, what are they going to do? They're going to turn around and go after the seller of the property, which happens to be your company. Now, by keeping your other deals, your other properties in the name of this LLC, like we have here, 2 deals that are going on, you really strengthened the buyer's hand, that is the plaintiff in that potential lawsuit. This person right here, they're going to put the screws to you. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do to prevent what they're going to do if they file a lawsuit. Namely this: hey, pay me 50 grand or I'll start a lawsuit. And if I start a lawsuit, I'm going to file a lis pendens on each of these properties. What does that mean? That I'm putting a $50,000 lien on each of your properties. So when you sell your property, I get paid. Well, actually, I don't get paid. It goes to the court registry. If you try to refinance these properties, the money that you take out of that on a cash out refi goes to the court registry. So you're in a position now where the plaintiff has tied up your assets until you resolve this dispute. And why is that? Because these new assets are in the name of the entity that sold the buyer the property. I gave you a real life example of one of our clients who didn't follow the script, the plan that we created for him, and instead he flipped in his entity like I just showed you, and this is exactly what the attorney did to him. And I told him, I said, pay it, try to settle it. Let's get out of it maybe for $35,000. But you're not going to be able to prevent this from going forward. You're going to be stuck in litigation possibly for 2 years if you want to fight it. And if you do lose, not only are you going to lose the $50K, but you're also going to have to pay the other side's most likely attorney's fees as well, and your own attorney. So, and you're not covered by insurance on this type of deal. So those people that think, well, just load up on insurance, you're probably not covered. In fact, I 100% guess you would not be covered on this type of claim. So how do we prevent a flipper from falling into this scenario? Well, as I stated, we're going to use special purpose entities. So I will instead create, here's my LLC. So whenever you see the orange box, that's your S or C Corp, that flipping entity that we're talking about, right? S or C. Okay, and you're down here. But this entity doesn't actually own the property. So when we buy real estate, we're going to set up special purpose entities, which would be other limited liability companies. And I'll show you some other entities we could wrap into this as well here in a few minutes. So you're going to set up separate LLCs like this. Now, those LLCs will be 100% owned by your flipping company. They'll be disregarded LLCs, so they don't have to file tax returns. Okay. Now, each of your deals, you'll take one property down per LLC. So in my previous example of having 3 properties, what he should have done, what we outlined for this person, was that you have one LLC set up per property. Then when you sell the property to the buyer, you can shut down this LLC. Just close it down. Close it down. Why? Because when the buyer looks to come back against the seller and they go to contact the attorney, like if somebody came to me and said, Clint, I bought this house from someone and it's got $50,000 of plumbing work. I want to sue the seller. And I would ask him, well, let me see your purchase and sale agreement. Who'd you buy it from? And I'll jump online. I'll look up the name of the entity. And if I see that that entity is dissolved, what I would tell them is, hey, that seller is out of business. They're no longer in business. So yeah, we could potentially still bring a claim, but we're going to have to figure out where the money went, who the owner of that LLC is. And then it's going to have to survive. The action is going to be subject to a lot of scrutiny and whether or not we have the ability to bring them in, name them as a defendant. So you've just really tripled your costs. So I'll take the case, but it's going to cost you a $20,000 retainer. You see, now that's going to make probably most buyers balk because there's also no guarantee here. Because there's no assets that we can immediately attach. All right, everyone, take care. Thanks for being there.